Hey nerds, we are talking about Special Ops Lioness, episode 103, Bruise Like A Fist. We are going to review it and then get into a breakdown of the episode starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Nathan.
And I'm Swetha.
Hey, so we missed the last two episodes because we got screeners a little bit late, so we'll talk a little bit about the last two episodes when we talk about this one, but the spoiler-free logline provided to us by Paramount for this episode is Cruz is invited to spend the weekend with Aaliyah and her inner circle. Joe keeps Kaitlyn informed of Cruz's progress, and Kyle comes to Joe desperate for help with an asset. So, Swetha, what did you think of this episode, and what did you think of the first two episodes? Again, if you haven't seen the first two episodes, go away and go watch the first two episodes. We're recording this before the third episode, but we have to talk about the first two episodes and our ideas about the show in general to talk about this episode. Yeah.
It's difficult to get away from talking about the previous two episodes.
Yeah.
Overall, I liked it better than the second episode, which so far has been my least favorite of the three. And I also really loved the pilot. So I thought it made sense as a continuation of the story, and I understand the purpose of it. In this episode, I feel like we get a little bit more of an insight into what Joe's home life is like. And that actually, I think, overshadowed a lot of the other plot lines that happened as part of the show. And we can get into it. I assume we'll get into it in further detail, but there were elements over the weekend when Cruz spends time with Aaliyah that I think were perhaps a bit unnecessary. And then I thought we would get into where the episode ended sooner. So it was a little bit slow moving, like some pacing issues for me. What did you think?
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before we started. I'm trying to understand. I was talking to my wife about this as well. Like when I watched the screener earlier this week on Tuesday, I'm trying to understand who the show was for or what they're trying to go for, and also why this is the project that Zoë Saldaña signed up for. Like what? So this is a Taylor Sheridan show, and he's known at this point for like conservative television. He's most famously for Yellowstone, which a lot of people like. I have never seen that show, but they keep giving him shows. And this is his latest show. I think the only show that I've seen is actually Mayor, which stars Jeremy Renner, who, if you don't know, plays Hawkeye in the MCU. So that show is interesting and actually a little bit more nuanced because, like I said, backtracking a little bit to the first episode, that was a little bit more mixed for me. There were definitely elements that I liked. I'm not sure if we're supposed to like Joe or like anyone in the show except for maybe Cruz because I don't know that I like anyone except for Cruz. But even her scenes when they did the flashback in the first episode, when they went back to 4 years ago, those were a little reductively written. I'm not sure if have you seen P-Valley? So P-Valley is a show about performers, dancers, or strippers down in Louisiana. It has much more of a nuanced take on that culture. Like I said, his Mayor Kingstown also has like criminals in it, but it tries to humanize them. Like I imagine that the people that she was hanging around in that flashback exist in real life, but they were like cartoon conservative ideas of who sex workers are, who strippers are, and who like they hang around with. So that was off-putting, and she didn't seem to have a nuanced take about it at all either. So that like the first thing that she said wasn't, like I said, the people that she was around were cartoonishly villainous. The guy who punches her in the face, and so like maybe she's in the right, but she just seemed, the general comment that she says to the girl about shaking her rear end or whatever was a little off-putting, but like I said, not as off-putting as that guy that punched her in her face.
Or like the fact that she landed in an army office, it was like an act for military.
Yeah, as I said, the Sheridan stuff tends to be conservative. He doesn't want to be known as the conservative guy, but a lot of conservatives like his shows because they're a little bit propagandist. And this isn't any different. I definitely think the second episode was unnecessary for the entire. Maybe that's why they didn't give us the screeners for the second episode. I don't know. Like they gave us screeners for the first episode, and then they dropped episode 1 and 2. Maybe they didn't want to get bad press about the second episode because it was just basically.
I didn't like the second episode, to be honest. Like it was just a lot. The whole show is violent, but at the point where you're notably more violent in an episode, and all that's happening is like people throwing punches for reasons that aren't clear at all and seem very related to Joe's own trauma. Not great.
Yeah, it did make sense.
It added anything.
Yeah. I forget what the name of the episode is. Was it?
It's Beating.
Beating. Yeah, it was called Beating. Yeah, and I mean, you're sort of with Joe. Joe's is Saldaña's character, right? You're sort of with Joe when she strip searches Cruz in the first episode. You understand because of how the first episode starts. Like she dropped a bomb on someone who she didn't want to drop a bomb on because she didn't want to risk other people's lives. It was a terrible decision to have to make, but she made it. From Cruz's point of view, she thinks that she's like getting off phone or whatever. But I don't really understand her rationale in the second episode, and it completely like put the mission at risk in the third episode. So
and that was like a foreseeable outcome, right?
Yeah.
Which then led into my frustration with like, why did Cruz's character have to think of things on the spot? They know she's gonna have marks from getting the crap kicked out of her.
Yeah.
Surely this should have been a well thought out, what do you say, how do you explain it, how do you manage it thing. Like, why did Cruz have to improvise that much?
Yeah.
That seemed like bad planning.
It makes no sense. So I tried to go with it in the first episode. She has no training in counterintelligence. You're gonna just throw her in here. She doesn't know who the person is. But okay, you don't want her to know the person's name because she's not trained in this sort of thing, so she might slip up. Fine. But yeah, you just beat her for like days. And then at the end of the second episode, her contact calls her. So yeah, what's the plan? So I don't know. I like the episode, like you said, better than the second episode, but I'm still trying to understand what the point of certain things are and whether or not we're supposed to like anyone besides Cruz. And if we're only supposed to like Cruz, why did Nicole Kidman and Zoë Saldaña and who's the other guy? Morgan Freeman sign up for the show?
Yeah, a lot of big names in this show.
Yeah.
Which being curious about what they're going for. I also like you said, you and I had talked about this a little bit before, but I think that there is a class of show that is just good watching because it's fast and it deals with like good guys and bad guys. And like, I think that there is still and always has been like an appetite for that kind of show.
So like procedural. This is not really a procedural though. Like you mean procedural, or are you thinking of some other kind of thing?
In the 90s, I think like Alias.
Yeah, sure.
I think that there are always like these kinds of shows that are easy to watch.
Yeah, true. But like in the 90s, I wouldn't have understood that they were oversimplifying geopolitics. But now I do.
Right.
Now I do. Yeah, so maybe this is for younger people who can be indoctrinated into thinking that America is always right in all its military aggression.
Well, that's the other thing, that it doesn't really seem to believe that. I'm not left with the impression that anyone here is a hero.
No, and especially in the third episode, we'll talk about it in a second, but we should probably get some ratings and then we can start digging into actual specifics of the third episode. So how would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10? I know you haven't been with us for a little while. We have a new scale, but 1 to 10, if you had to rate it, and we can put up there what that corresponds to. But how would you?
It's probably been a 6.
Yeah, so we have that as a date night. So like basically something that you could watch with your significant other, not necessarily a main attraction, won't necessarily destroy a date, but probably something you wouldn't revisit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can give it a 6 as well. 6 is fine. For this episode, I think I'd probably give the previous episode
a 2?
Yeah, 2 is our drunk watch. Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I give it a 6. Hopefully it gets better after this week and it's clearer what direction they're going in. At this point, we should actually start talking about the episode. But if you're enjoying the conversation, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you can only do one, like, it makes the algorithm happy. Oh, and as I mentioned in previous videos, my nonprofit is doing fundraising right now. So if you want to help out, there's a link below. With that, spoilers ahead. All right, I guess we can start a little bit with the first episode. So yeah, this is where she had to make the decision to drop the bomb on her first asset. And yeah, and I think it was in Syria or something like that. And this is her new asset, Cruz, and we see them bonding in that first episode. I don't know that this is, in the second episode, is the implication here that Nicole Kidman is also in the CIA? Or like she's just higher up in the CIA? Okay.
Yeah.
We meet her husband, which she doesn't seem to like in this episode as well. I think it's her husband. Like they seem to be in the same place, and he's a senator. Yeah.
And she speaks quite derisively about him in the second episode.
Yeah, before he comes in.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it's a marriage of convenience or whatever. Yeah, I'm trying to understand what's going on with Nicole Kidman and Zoë Saldaña. What was the pitch to them for them to come on? Not just executive producers on the show, but like actors on the show. Was it like, okay, this is a special ops team that depends on a woman, but I feel like it would have to have more substance, and maybe substance is coming down the line. I don't know, for me to sign on and attach my name to it. Anyway, in the second episode, this is where I guess they pinned her up and just assumed that she was gonna get restless, and then as soon as she got restless, took her off of the street to beat her for the episode. It was like, okay, whatever.
The entire one.
Yeah. I guess we also meet in the first episode her family. Her family seemed like whatever. Her marriage is weird.
A lot of chemistry, but no understanding of how they function as a couple.
Yeah, I guess because she's gone so much, they have an open relationship, but I guess they have a lot of affection for each other still. He knows what she does. Not the specifics, but he knows what she does. And her teenage...
She deals with pediatric cancer, which sounds like it sucks.
Yeah, that whole conversation that he had with her about his medical school friend was interesting. I guess I like him. His conversation with his daughter in the car was also interesting also. So like, she seemed like not much of a character in the first episode, and then she got more interesting in the third episode, and also a bit annoying in the third episode as well.
He's being a teenager really well.
Yeah, so yeah, I am interested to see where that goes. Yeah, this is them at their house, Nicole Kidman and the senator. And yeah, I forget what their whole back and forth is about. Besides him saying that, basically saying you lot have made information communication impossible because you used the press basically to flood it with misinformation so no one believes anything. So I feel like if she has contempt, it's mutual or it flows in both directions. I don't even know at the end of the scene when she leaves and she tells him, look at me, and he says the sun will be on what I'm looking at. I don't know if he was like serious about that or he was just trying to hide something. I don't know. They don't seem to like each other at all.
I took that all to mean that they have a really bad marriage.
Yeah.
That's how I understood it. The way I interpreted it is that this was like the future of the marriage that Joe's character was in.
Yeah.
That's how I viewed it.
Possibly, but I feel like both of them are dicks, and I don't know that he's a dick. I feel like they will get divorced before they devolve into this.
But I think we start to see hints of it with his like struggling to parent their older child.
Oh yeah, with the compromise and the over the shirt compromise with the older shirt.
Yeah, and the whole like first I'm your father thing. But I don't think any of them, like Joe's certainly not getting any parenting awards, but perhaps if your child is getting into violent fights, you might want to figure out what's happening there before jumping into punishment.
Yeah, it's not like Joe can come in and say any. I think she made it a point. It was a flippant point that she said to her father, but she made a point that he didn't really respond to, and they didn't even have a conversation about it when Joe came home about the specifics of why she got into the fight. I don't know if it's going to come up again, but I feel like that was an interesting line to put in the episode and just let it lay and then not address it again ever. We'll see if it gets addressed later on. We'll see. But yeah, there are fleeting moments of potential like that, but then they're not developed.
Yeah, they away from it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and then there's this dude, which is I think what you were talking about, where it doesn't seem like the show thinks that these guys are heroes. Like they're definitely doing a bunch of extrajudicial crap at the border, and even the guys who Joe had go with him, they're like, this was crazy. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, at the point where the crazy guys are like, this is wild. Like something has really gone off the rails here.
Yeah, because I think when I was watching this, I got the tail end of this. My wife was watching, and it was like, the CIA is not supposed to operate inside the U.S. That's illegal in and of itself. And then you're just knocking off or stealing fugitives or stealing someone from the police. And yeah, it's like they're like vigilantes, and they're uncomfortable with it. Which is like you said, the violent guys. What did Joe call them? Door knockers or door pushers? Door busters. Yeah, they're the door busters, and they're uncomfortable with it. So this guy, this seems to be a skeezy guy, but like everyone in this show is a little bit skeezy. So like, how would you rate him?
Yeah, like some of them just seem to be a little bit more professional than others.
Yeah.
You're a good thing here.
Yeah. They didn't actually provide a lot of photos of the third episode with Joe at the estate, but so I guess that's pretty much all we have for photos. But like the whole thing at the mansion where she was put in the situation where she had to improvise what was happening to her. I'm not even sure where she's holding, because they took all her stuff and they searched it, where her microphone is, because they're listening on.
Actually, like my drive to dinner the other day, I was like, is it her earring? Is it a wireless mic and like her jewelry? Like,
but I would assume that they would have scanned all that. So it makes me think, did they embed it inside of her somewhere? Like, and if that's the case, is it just a microphone? Because they seemed very concerned that when they went to the airport, they weren't going to be able to track tracker, so I guess it's not a GPS or as well, so or beacon or RFID is what I meant to say. So I don't know. It's not clear that it wasn't. Maybe I missed the briefing or when she was briefed, because they did say that her bags were going to be checked, and they several scenes where that place is being super surveilled. So it's curious how she was able to get not only a listening device, but a listening device that's broadcasting radio waves out of the facility, because you could probably catch something being broadcasting out of facility if you have that much security. So whatever. Anyway, it wasn't clear to me. But yeah, she's put in a situation where she's being examined by this doctor. She has to come up with this story, and the story is plausible because of what actually happened to her with her boyfriend several years ago. So she's basically telling the truth, and they're like you said, good improvising, but like you put her in this situation, this weird situation. Anyway, it's
like we're worried about tattoos, but looking like you've gotten beaten up by random people is totally fine for reason.
Yeah. Also, even beyond them beating her up, she does have bruises from her relationship, and there was no conversation about what are you going to say about this. They knew that she was going for a beach weekend. The conversation that we got at the end of the second episode, it might have been at the beginning of the first episode when she was on the phone with her, she said that there's a time for modesty, and when we're at the beach, this isn't the time. So there was no conversation about, okay, what we're going to say about the burn marks on my arm. What are we going to say? Let alone all the beatings that I have. So I don't know. Yeah, she seems to be, if she's very concerned about Cruz because of her last high value asset, she's not preparing her very well. She's putting her in situations, I think Cruz is supposed to be the hero of the show, and she'll make out fine, but she doesn't seem to have any real support besides the door pushers. But like the door pushers don't do anything unless Joe tells them to do it. Yeah. So if another situation arises where she's in trouble, it's not like they're gonna disobey her and come in and save Cruz. Yeah. It's interesting. You're right. Not much happened except for the guy trying to assault her and her taking care of herself, and like I said, all the bruises that she had to figure out a story for, and then also thinking on her feet about the ID on the back of the jet, because if that didn't happen, if she didn't tell them that the plane that he spotted was not the right plane, and they would have been chasing that plane. Yeah. So I guess it's a good setup for wherever they're going to take her. I assume. Did they say Dubai? What did they say?
Did they say?
I know Dubai was mentioned in this episode, but maybe they didn't say yet.
No, I don't think we know where they're going.
Yeah.
To double check that.
Yeah. I'm curious to see where the rest of the season goes, but like you said, I am not sure who this is for, because I guess it's for conservatives-ish, but like you said, it doesn't necessarily paint the best picture of the clandestine service or the military at all.
And in fact, has like the opposite problem, right? Where I feel like the CIA has been trying to rehab its image forever. And I don't know. There are also like a couple of nitpicky details, like in episode 1, like why did this girl like attach herself to this random American girl who doesn't just bump into each other shopping and now they're best friends?
Yeah. And why did they think that this was going to, there's lots of people whose nature is not to talk to strangers. So why do they think this is going to work in the first place? Did they have a profile on her, or did they know that she, as her friends say in the third episode, like projects that she felt alienated by the friends that her father made her have? None of that is really explained. And I guess we're supposed to feel like Cruz. We're not supposed to have the information, but I don't know. We're not going on the missions. I feel like we should get a little bit
whipped might be nice. Yeah. Like a little bit behind the scene, a little bit more of that.
Yeah. Seeing as how like Cruz is on the screen maybe 1/3 or 1/4 of the time, because the show I think we're also, even though Cruz is supposed to be like the hero of the show, like Zoë Saldaña is, I still think, the star of the show, because we don't see much of like Cruz's life.
Yeah, we don't see anyone else's life besides Zoë Saldaña's character.
Yeah, we get a little bit of the bad marriage of Kaitlyn, but we don't get nearly as much life as we call it, as Joe, of any other character except for Joe. Yeah, and I guess the other thing that I forgot to mention is in this episode, her daughter sees her taking a gun, and her story is as an interpreter. I need this gun because all the interpreters need guns. Yeah, so her daughter is very close to figuring something out. I guess we'll see in future episodes where that goes. But yeah, I think the season has 8 episodes, and they actually have, we were talking about this before, they have photos up about all of them, but we don't have all the episodes. We are in as much in the dark as you guys are. We only saw the episodes a few days earlier, so we will see see where this goes. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
I will say I think they do anticipation really well. As a show, I think there are moments in the show where you're like, which way is it going? Like this way or that way?
Right.
And like they do stretch that out at the right moment. And then there's usually like a surprise or two. I think the like in episode 3, like the desire to get on the like moving locations and seeing which way the characters react to the like attack on Cruz by one of their friends. Like you wonder about what the motivations are even of them. And I think, yeah, for a show like this, I think that's like kind of its bread and butter. And I think it does do that very well.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So I'm definitely intrigued. I think some things are sloppy, but it's not so bad that I'm not interested in to see where it's going to go next. It could be like Secret Invasion, which I've watched for the last 6 weeks, and the ending was ridiculous, was terrible. We'll do another video about that at some point. But yeah, we shall see. But we want to hear what you guys think. So please comment down below, like, share, and subscribe, and we will catch you in the next one. All right, guys. Bye.